Well, I was in rabbinical school some 17 years ago. I had the internship of all internships. I spent the summer as the student rabbi of Fairbanks, Alaska. It was as amazing as you might expect. Beautiful, weird, full of moose. It was sunny all the time with spectacular blazing skies around 2 a.m. And we camped and hiked and we watched midnight baseball games and we floated down the mighty Chena River. And one weekend, we had a congregational Shabbaton in Denali National Park. In the morning, a bunch of us went out for a hike towards a mountain that we saw in the distance. It turned out the mountain was farther than we thought it was, and the hike was pokey and stabby as we moved through the Alaskan bramble. But eventually we arrived at the foot of the mountain and we began our climb. It was huge. I mean, it towered above us, enormous, but we had our eyes on the prize, that gorgeous summit at the top. If you've ever hiked or climbed or given all of the different ways that our bodies work, done a walk that was challenging for your body, then you know the triumph of summiting, getting to whatever end that you've been working towards. We got out of breath. We had to stop for water along the way. We anxiously climbed past fresh bear scat. We were tired, we were sweaty, and we were determined to reach that top. As we got closer, we could feel the energy in us rise. Our pace quickened, and we took the top with a hiking fervor. And on our last step up, one by one, we realized that it was a false summit. Set back a bit was the actual summit, massive and intimidating. It wasn't visible from the foot of the mountain or anywhere on the way up. Now, if you've ever arrived at a false summit, you know the cycle of emotions that comes next. Defeat, frustration, anger, laughter, acceptance, and then decision time. Do you have it in you to go on? As a people this week, we find ourselves in a similar moment in the Jewish cyclical narrative, and certainly we find ourselves here also in the unfolding story of our pandemic. In our story, we are just wrapping up Passover, where we're celebrating getting free. At our Seders, we told the story just now, getting out from under Pharaoh's grip. We crossed the sea. We took a deep and expansive breath of relief. On the other side of the waters, we did it. This is the moment that we had been working for all this long time, sweaty and out of breath. We climbed much farther than we thought we would have to. And we arrive ready to sing and dance with Miriam's timbrel setting the beat. But as soon as we get to the other shore, as soon as Passover is behind us, we realize that there is a mountain set back a ways that we couldn't see from the bottom. But now it's beckoning us towards it, demanding us that we keep on climbing. In the case of our story, it's an actual mountain. As once we cross the sea, we immediately begin our 3-month journey towards Mount Sinai, where we will receive the Torah. And now we have to decide whether we've got it in us to continue on. Getting free, as huge as that seemed, was only the very first step towards our summit. In the Guide for the Perplexed, Maimonides teaches that the original aim and object of the Exodus from Egypt was the giving of the Torah. We might have thought it was the getting free part, but that was only a part of the way. The goal, the summit, the whole time had been Sinai and Torah and covenant and peoplehood. That is why Maimonides goes on to explain, we count the Omer, the days, from 1 to 49, from Passover to Shavuot, from freedom's shore to the foot of Sinai. We were spent from the energy that it took just to break our physical shackles. And so perhaps we needed the motivation, a purposeful counting of our steps to decide to press on. So we count the Omer now, every day until Shavuot, because getting free itself would not have been dayenu, enough, if we had stopped there and said that we were done. So it seems to be also with this pandemic that we're living in. We have climbed and climbed this massive mountain. The brambles have poked and grabbed at us along the way. It was so much longer and steeper than we thought it would be. And now it feels like we are just about to summit. We're vaccinating something like 3 million people per day. The waves of immunity are beginning. The restrictions are gently easing. Not yet. And the CDC is warning us, begging us to hang on a little bit longer, and we will. But it's coming. We can feel it. The summit that we've been focusing on is right up ahead. And yet, there is another mountain peak set back a bit, maybe just beyond our sight. We might call it the mountain of re-entry. And it is no joke. Our journey will not be over, even as more and more of us are vaccinated. If from Passover to Shavuot, from the Red Sea to Mount Sinai, is a deliberate journey of being towards being in covenant with one another, then so is this one. Or perhaps it's about re-covenanting with one another. Maybe you've felt this already. You've been back in a new social setting and you couldn't remember, is it safe to hug, to smile, to inhale? How close is too close? What did I used to do with my hands? What kind of intimacy is safe again? When will dating look normal again? What about grandparents? Prayer? Going to a bar? Being vulnerable in public? What will it all feel like when we are back together again? I watched two people come near each other the other day and do a COVID distance hug. And then they realized that they were both vaccinated and masked. And so they decided then and there to have a real hug. And it was the most beautiful and most awkward hug I've ever seen in my life. We've been away from each other for so long. I think it might be helpful for us to expect that re-entry won't be so obvious or so easy. It'll be emotional. It'll be a climb. Knowing that now might mitigate the gut punch that is a false summit as we start to think about what we will each need, what our community will need, what we might each be comfortable with and when. As we recovenant with each other, we'll figure out what new promises do we need to make to each other? What are our obligations to each other now? Do we need ritual to mark the change? Probably. We know we need information, and that's coming. But we also need ways to be deliberate in our steps forward. We're counting the Omer right now, perhaps because we need that kind of a map, that encouragement to keep going deliberately, thoughtfully, patiently. So re-entry might be for us joyful and patient, a huge rush, and maybe also a little scary. How could it not be? For a year, we haven't been able to trust simply breathing shared air. But like the Omer guides us, we'll go one day at a time, one foot in front of the next, marking our progress towards re-knowing community and re-knowing ourselves in community. This morning, we heard Torah chanted from Parshat Bashalach, the portion where we cross the Sea of Reeds and make it to the other side. And there's a part where the people are so afraid to cross. Moses says to them, Tacharishun, hush up and watch as God does battle for you today. And Moses turns expectantly to God, who says to him, Ma titzak elai, why are you crying out to me? Tell the people to go forward. V'yisa'u, take each other's hands and cross. And so we will. We have been this long way together. And now the next chapter is coming. We'll go step by step. We'll make sure that no one's getting left behind. We'll take turns at the front. We'll stop for water. And at the end, we'll be different. We already are. But we'll be stronger too, having arrived not just after the sweet elation of our first summit, but the collective joy of having made it back to one another as well. Shabbat Shalom.